like this, you don't usually say no. This is freelance writer, teacher extraordinaire. Hopefully I say this right. Natasha Khullar. She's
Khullar, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she's cooler, probably cooler than me too. It's all true. But she is a freelance author. She does some really cool freelance stuff. When I started freelancing, I got into a bunch of different. So there's a bunch of people as newsletters I read all the time. Yours is one. Um, Hold on, Sophie Lizard's another one, and Mike Streeves the other one. And between the three of you, I've learned an awful lot about freelancing. So I thought it'd be really cool to have you come on the show. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Well, it's afternoon here. I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just beginning my day as well because I wake up at noon-ish. So really, it's early morning here as well.
Yeah, it's early morning. It's okay. Yeah. Your schedule's your schedule. However it is you actually do it, right? So, yeah. How about we start with this one? Because I've had one of the things that the hardest lesson I've learned as a freelancer in this time. This was the hardest thing. Was okay. You gotta find a niche and kind of figure out what and go into that niche. I feel that was probably the smart way to do it. Get people to know you're known for something. What took me about 6 months to really sink in was the simple fact that I've been doing this podcast forever. This is my niche. I should be using this. Yeah. So it took me about 6 months before I went, oh, I already have half the battle solved. What the heck am I doing, right? For you, like, when you started, what was kind of what was your struggle?
Well, I'll speak to the niche thing because that was part of my struggle, which was that I didn't really want to pick a niche. So what I did was I wanted to try everything and see which felt right. I don't think it was a conscious decision. It was more just like I was 19 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just, I try everything and whatever sticks.
Yeah.
And then I realized that because this was, I'm going to age myself here, but it was 2002 when I first started. And at the time, there weren't that many resources for international freelancers. I was a college student in India, and I was trying to hide the fact that I was in India because, most of the publications I was pitching were American or British. And then I realized at some point it all came together, and I thought, India is my niche. That's the thing that I bring to the table that nobody else does. And so that was sort of, once I kind of discovered that I could make that an advantage instead of trying to hide it, that became my niche. And then I was, contributing to American and British publications, but I was writing about my home. And that ended up being sort of a niche. And I think my biggest struggle was that because I felt like I was Indian working in a foreign industry where there wasn't that much information for us. There wasn't, they used to call us ESL writers, English as a second language writers. They thought, there was a barrier to entry. And I felt like that was something I had to hide or be ashamed of, I guess, in a way of I'm an ESL writer, so I am not as good as the writers in the West. And I think that was a mental block. It was my problem. It wasn't anything that was anybody else's block. It was my block. And once I overcame that, I made my disadvantage into my niche.
No.
So at the time I was the India expert for a lot of publications.
Yeah. So what, just everything in India, or is there particular cultural things that you were writing about, or was it just as a broad topic, India, they went to you?
A bit of both. I mean, I loved doing women's stories and social issues and human rights, and that came a little bit after. But I think initially I just realized that there are so many publications that need international stories. India, if I pitch them stories, if I pitch an India story to a construction magazine, they don't get that many. So I can do what I like. If I can find a good story, I can actually stand. I can be quite different. I can bring something to them that they're not always getting. So I did a bit of both. My own interests were in human rights and social issues and women's issues. So I did a lot of that reporting. But if somebody emailed me and said, hey, can you do a business story, or can you do an agriculture story, or can you do, whatever, I would do it. Because in the end, it's all just reporting. You just go, you find out.
It's storytelling. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're telling a story, and it really doesn't matter what the subject matter is. It's really just about just getting the right, your concept. For me, when I do freelance writing, I'm in a competitive market because I like talking about art and comics and it's a competitive market. But that all said, you can always bring you bring yourself to the story, no matter what the story is, whether I'm writing about that or whether I'm writing about like nonfiction science stuff or anything like that. What I find is you're still telling a story. You got to figure out what the story beats you're telling, and you have to figure out, okay, this is the story I want to tell, and then will people buy it? It's a process, but it's interesting. Like you learn an awful lot about pitching, and you learn an awful lot about, ironically, sales. Pitching to all these different places.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about, I think a lot of the storytelling is about people. Like the moment you can bring people into your storytelling, that's when it connects to others. So, dry subjects versus, bringing a human aspect to it. That's what I think makes the difference between a story that's just information to something that then becomes storytelling and something that becomes about, you're commenting on the world we live in.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, that's why I like interviews so much, because I get to figure out who the people are on the other side are. So, so like I said, so now you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
So you still learning? Like, are you still like learning new things all the time? And what are you learning about in this time in particular? Since we have in some ways more time than we know what to do with, in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think the business is always constantly changing. So you're always learning to reinvent. I mean, we talk about a niche, but my niche from 20 years ago is not the same as now. I mean, I'm always, as a writer, and I think also just personally, you always want to reinvent. Otherwise, I find that it just gets boring. I never stuck to a niche for more than a few years because I was like, well, I know everything now. Well, I didn't, but you kind of feel like now I'm beginning to tread the same ground repeatedly, and I want to move on and I want to do new things. So I felt like I kept changing my niche a fair bit. And then, if you move, which I tend to do a fair bit, I moved from India to the UK, then went back to India, then came back, and I traveled around in the early years. So every new country I went to, you have, that country becomes a new place to explore. But then you can look at all the niches that you've had in the past and bring them to the new country and then look at things from a different perspective. So I feel like as you grow as a person as well, you change as a writer, and then you're constantly learning new things and doing new, stuff. I think what I'm learning now, I'm moving more towards sort of books and kind of self-publishing, but also selling novels and things. And I find that the niche, it's interesting because like what you said right at the beginning, I'm becoming the niche because I have so many different variations of what I do. In the end, a lot of why people stay with my newsletter is not because I'm talking about a subject, it's because I'm just talking about the behind the scenes of everything I'm doing. And I think that resonates with people in a way that just like saying I'm a science writer or saying I'm a human rights writer.
Yeah.
There's definitely space for that, but that's not why people are connecting with me right now.
Well, and it's because I've done my own fiction, right? I've published some of my own fiction as well. And what I felt like niche, and it's interesting because every audience, like whether you're going traditional, whether you're going indie or independent, or I kind of put crowdfunding as kind of its third because the goals there are very different than the other two. But it really doesn't matter. Like ultimately, what you're bringing to the table is yourself. And I think one of the reasons why I think we changed, and this is just me, I've moved an awful lot. I'm in Canada, but I've lived in the States as well, and I've traveled back and forth to both countries throughout my life. You change so much when you see the world. Like the experience of it just it completely changes you. It kind of forces you to reevaluate everything you know. And as I get older, I realize I know less and less. I don't know about you. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah. And I have a child, and once you have a child, it's like, oh yeah, there's a whole world out there now of young people, with their games, and their world is so different from our world as well. And you kind of get a sense of like they're growing up in a completely new environment, and that gives you some perspective as well. It's just quite, it's a new way of looking at things. You can do that through the form of kind of moving countries. You can do that through the form of different age groups and looking at things in different ways. I think all of these experiences kind of become a part of what we do.
So when your kid does something, do you look at her and say, I did that? Oh crap. Or him or her?
Yeah, I do. And I'm just like, and my mom used to say, just wait till you have kids and they do it to you what you're doing to me. And yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, and you're like, I thanks, Mom. That's the curse. No parent wants to. Like, I think every parent gives their kid, they will do this to you, and you're like, please don't. It's bad enough that I did it to you, right?
Well, he's 9, so he's still got, he's still got a ways to go. But yeah, it's a good age because they got opinions, and
they're learning. They're learning about actually, if anything, he's probably making you sharper because he's going to ask. Because here's the cool thing about kids: they ask questions you take for granted. Like that's the thing. Like things you take for granted, they're just asking, and then sometimes you hear it and you go, "Why am I taking this for granted?" Because they actually have a good point here. Why am I doing this? And so it forces you to be sharper. I get why teachers and parents with kids, because it adds another dimension to your character, and also just gives you a perspective you wouldn't otherwise have.
No, and it's interesting because, again, coming back to the lessons we were talking about, I mean, he watches, like most kids his age, he watches YouTubers playing video games, right? And it's interesting because I got so many business lessons out of watching. I would have never watched these YouTubers on my own because, it's just watching people play games. I still don't understand how this works. I mean, it's one thing to play a game and enjoy it, but kids these days, they watch YouTubers play the games and they love it for some reason. But anyway, it's been interesting to watch these guys and girls, young people, playing these games, have millions of followers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing they do. And I was kind of getting pulled into like 100 different directions of like, I've got a business, I'm writing, I need to promote this way, I need to do audio, I need to do video. And then last year I had this kind of aha moment where I was looking at these people and they're doing that one thing and they're doing it with excellence. And therefore that's attractive to their audience. And like, that's the reason my kid watches them. It's not because they are good on Twitter or whatever. They have this one thing, they do it really well and they stick to it. And that's what people come to them for. And I was like, I'm trying to do like these 100 different things. No point. I'm a writer. I will always write many different things, but I don't have to be, creating videos and having a YouTube channel. If it doesn't feel right, I can just do one thing, do it really well, and trust that people will come to me for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of made a decision with this as well, like with interviews, because I've been doing them for 20 years. So I just in various forms, like the podcast is 5 years old, but it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, let's keep evolving it and let's keep trying to make it as excellent as I can, and I'll draw the right people to me because I'm telling these great stories. And the thing about Twitch, here's the interesting thing about Twitch, like that's which is ironically on the platforms this is being viewed at right now. It's simply that it's the process of it's not even so much what they do, it's about interaction, right? So so when you watch someone play a game, because I do follow a few YouTube channels myself, and you're interacting, you get this really unique access to the person involved that you don't get anywhere else. You go on television and you watch television, right? Well, the newscaster or the sports personality or whatever the case you see on television, it's a one-way interaction. They are interacting to you. They are telling you how to do this. Consequently, though, I can go on. Could you imagine, just hypothetically, right, if your government was on Twitch? Like seriously, could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Everybody would have this access to them in a way that would be unprecedented. I actually think that would be a fantastic thing because it would force Yeah. But the thing is that that's the appeal of YouTube. That's the appeal of Twitch, is because you get this unprecedented access to like anybody here. I'm on Facebook and I'm there right now. It's like you can, like, anyone that wants to post a comment on, say, Twitch, they can do so, and we can interact and respond, and it also can change the whole interview. That's the other thing about it too. Sometimes what happens when you watch a stream or anything like that, and this is the appeal of it, you can dictate the course of the stream. Because what happens is, let's say we're talking here, someone puts a random comment about anything, right? It completely changes the flow of the conversation in a very different way. So it gives an audience a sense of power that they would not have anywhere else. Even YouTube, like, even though YouTube is still kind of one way, it also kind of isn't. There is that aspect of you can stream live on YouTube, you can stream live on these big platforms, and you can get people the opportunity to come in and do different things. But ultimately, right, it's that interaction and that consistency, and that's why you do a newsletter. It's interaction and it's consistency, right?
But that's the part that's kind of amazing, but also terrifying as the creator. It's because like my newsletters, I can control. Once I've written it, I can edit them. I can, and when you're live and when you're talking, you're just there unfiltered. And I think that's the fun bit of it. I mean, I used to do a lot of live streams a few years ago as well, just on my Facebook and things. And it's great interaction. And I love doing it with somebody so that, you kind of have a back and forth. But I remember when I was just sitting there on my own trying to talk about a subject, and then I found that quite challenging, but in a good way. But I also kind of feel like you.
What am I doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also it's kind of like, well, that you make yourself vulnerable in a way that, I mean, as writers, we're always making ourselves vulnerable, but we kind of control to the level to which we can do that. We can always write something, come back, say, okay, I don't feel comfortable with this. And then when you're live and you're talking unfiltered, you kind of just, you're chill, you're relaxed. And then you go, oh, did I really say that?
I don't worry about it. Like that,
that's the hesitation is like,
Yeah, well, you can't, because here's why, right? That we're taking a risk. We're talking live right now. Someone here could say, oh my God, what the heck are we doing? But the fact of the matter is, like, I think it's also the nature of where business is going today as well, right? Writers don't have the luxury of anymore of just being complete introverts. They just don't. Like, we don't have that luxury anymore. The idea, like even in fiction, like the idea of going to an agent, going to a publisher, going, hey, listen, can you do all? No, they don't. Like, none of them do. The reality of the situation is, I call it the professional wrestling effect, because that's initially like that where they saw like the idea of people promoting their stuff and telling their stories and doing their things and drawing money to come your way. That's been around for decades, but now it's happened. Now it's become the norm. People that are watching this, I'm hoping, like again, they're getting a good story out of this, but I'm hoping they subscribe to the podcast in some way or fashion. You're hoping some of my audience will check you out, because obviously you teach really good things about freelancing, and guys, she really does. She has a really cool perspective about it too, which is really, really neat. Right. But that's the hope. Like, that's the result. But but what we're doing too is we're almost creating an interactive play and a story as of right now.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, that awkward "what if I suck" thing.
You will.
Yeah. You will.
I mean, I agree with that. I completely agree. It's that hesitation of what will I suck? And the truth of the matter is, of course you will. There will be a point, at some point you will, initially, I guess, when you first start, we all suck at everything. So you might as well just get that over with and then become confident and comfortable with it.
Yes. Well, actually, sometimes sometimes you surprise yourself. Like, I started drawing because I want to tell comics, and I'm broke. So since I'm broke ass, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna teach myself how to at least draw competently enough.
Yeah.
Right. I've sold 2 pieces of art. Now, it wasn't for a ton of money, but it's like, okay, that's a confidence booster. Yeah. I didn't even sell my writing that fast, right? It just bang, right? It's like, wow, that went quick, right? So now I'm like, okay, now I gotta challenge myself. Can I figure out some other things so I can get to where I really want to get to, which is tell stories with right? But everything leads in steps. Here it's like, so I've learned that it's important. It's actually awesome to be vulnerable in front of an audience. It's amazing how much you disarm them and encourage them at the same time. It's actually an amazing combo.
When I share my failures, and I do quite a fair bit, when I share my failures, I get the most comments, the most emails, the most sort of like feedback, because people are so tired of seeing this, success story that was just up a straight line. And people like to, and I look at myself as a reader. When I read a book and I really connected with the author's work, I sometimes will, go check them out on Twitter. I'll go check them out on their websites, and I want to subscribe to their newsletter. And so many don't even have a newsletter. So many have no way for you to connect with them. And I'm always, if I've connected with an author and I can find a way to follow them in a way that they're being vulnerable and sharing, well, I'm so much more likely to interact and buy more of their work and become more of a fan, because we all want to be, well, part of it, I mean, what I do is like show the behind the scenes, and I think we all love seeing the behind the scenes, and especially the failures and especially the setbacks, because so that it makes us feel less alone. Because especially as writers and artists, there are very few people who just write that first book and then suddenly they're like, massive successes. We all go through that journey, and witnessing that journey, I think, is the most amazing part of it. I love sharing my journey, but I also love reading other people's journeys. It feels more of a community than just somebody saying, hey, I've got this book deal and now I'm an author and now I'm this bestseller. And I feel like I'll still read their books, but if I want to engage with their work, I find it harder to like get to know them as people and support them as
well, it's like this. And this is kind of like how I see it. It's easy. It's hard to success is not a common thing. Then what I mean by that is like we all are familiar with failure. I don't know about you, but I've been knocked on my ass flying off the bicycle. You know, that first kiss was awkward. Like there's a lot of those things that we go through in life. Yeah. There's like that up and then down, up and then down, up, and that's and that's a big part of life. Like you're never gonna. I spent the year, and I've been spending the year being a freelancer. It has not gone the way I imagined it would. Right. On the other hand, I've learned an awful lot, and I'm going to take what I've learned to take it to the next level. And again, I'm going to keep at it. I may have to go back and get a somewhat semi-regular job again when it's all said and done for at least a little bit. But I mean, I now know what I'm doing. It's something. Yeah. I know it's a little bit more what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go up and try again, because then again, who knows? Maybe by the time my deadline comes, everybody's watching all my videos, and all of a sudden it's like I'm a rock star. It's like, holy shit, how did that happen, right? I think
you know what I experienced was that once you've hit a certain level of success with something, then admitting to failure becomes harder. And so I had this experience where I've been a successful journalist now for a long time. That's what people knew me for. When I sort of started writing novels, first of all, it took ages to even finish. And I was talking about it because I was just used to talking about stuff. I didn't expect it to take 7 years. I expected it to take a year. So I was telling people, oh, I'm writing a novel. Second year, still writing a novel. Third year, still writing a novel. Fourth year, got an agent. She sent me back to the drawing board. So I was sharing these, but I was not always very comfortable sharing it because I was failing as an author repeatedly. And then my first book didn't sell. I mean, we went, I had an agent, we went out, it didn't sell. And I actually was, first of all, quite hesitant, but then I just kind of tend to just say it. So I told people that I had not sold my first novel, and then I was going to go write a second book. And I think people were quite surprised that I was actually saying that I was failing as an author. And I think it's a little bit harder when people see you as a success and they look to you as somebody who knows what they're doing, and then you're like, actually, I have no idea. And I found that totally freeing.
Yeah, no, actually, I think that's the honest secret. Like I try everything, right? I try everything. I did audiobooks, I write articles, I've done all this stuff in this last year. And the reason and kind of like you, I'm just, again, it took me a while to figure out that whole niche thing, but the thing about that was I don't actually see them fully as failures. I just see it as part of the audiobooks taught me how to be better with sound. It forced me to actually reevaluate how I did things and made me better. Drawing has actually helped me with actually when I write my novels, it gives me more tools in the language box. Natasha was going to ask you this too. I'll get to that in a minute there. So with novels, with the novel thing, was it because you had more freedom than you were used to? Because the thing about a journalist, there's almost like a structure to what you're doing. And don't get me wrong, a lot of successful writers I know love structure. They're really, really well versed in it. But novels kind of give you this freedom to kind of go like this. I can go like this, right? And all the way. How the hell am I going to tell a story this big, especially when I'm used to telling a story maybe like this? Because you can tell concise stories. What I figured out was I can make every scene, like, what's my big story? It's almost like I Legoized my novel. What's my big story?
Yeah.
How many little stories can I fit to make that tapestry? Because everything is the sum of the parts. So that took me, my second novel really figured that out. The first I released, it's like, okay, everything I do is the sum of the parts. Now, I'm not brave enough to tackle 120,000 words. I'm not mature enough to do that yet. But I'm at like 50,000 words. I'm really happy with that range. But again, that's because I love the old dime novels from way back when I was a kid. In your case, like what was your goal? Like in terms of what kind of novel did you want to write? And what did you learn? Like what, like when you actually tried it, like what was like the holy shit moment? I got
all of it was the holy shit moment. I think I had 7 years of holy shit. But the interesting thing is I actually wanted to be a novelist first before I wanted to be a journalist, which is, I think, a pretty common thing. I just didn't think, I think when I became a journalist, I was 19 years old. I don't think I had the life experience to really tell the kind of stories that I wanted to tell. And I mean, I feel like I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And I think I had somewhere, I mean, obviously I did have the desire to do it, but I don't think I had the tools. And I think journalism gave me the tools to become confident as a writer and also just see the world. I think I had a bit of growing up to do before I could really start telling stories that I feel like now that I'm proud of. I mean, I could always, you can always write a novel. And I think the kind of stories I was wanting to tell about, abuse and about, like the women's stuff that I was talking about in India, that's kind of a lot of what my novels deal with as well. My journalism taught me a lot about that. It showed me different perspectives and not to approach. And journalism is really good for seeing things from different perspectives and not just coming at it from your own obvious one. So if you can step outside of yourself and see things from different angles, which I feel like journalism is kind of failing to do at the moment. But when I started training as a journalist, well, I didn't train, but as writing, that was the big thing that my mentors drilled into me, is like, you have to see things from the perspective that you're not used to. And I think that's what really it makes for good journalism, because there's no agenda. You have to put your own agenda and your own feelings about things aside and then look at it objectively. It's a really difficult thing to do. And I feel like in storytelling now, the novels I write as well, of course, I bring my own agenda into it. Of course, I bring my own, everything into it. But I do try sometimes to, like, introduce a character who might have a different opinion or look at things from a different perspective. And I feel like that's what I want to do with my work going forward as well. I do feel it's very easy to get caught up in sides, which is what we're experiencing now in the world. You've got to pick a side and then you just got to stick with it. And then, you can't ever deviate from that. And I find that I kind of want to challenge that a little bit more. I challenge myself quite a lot. I have so many friends with different perspectives, and sometimes it's so easy to get pissed off, and I do, obviously. But it's also important to listen, I feel, more and more. And I feel like the novels give you a space to explore that in a way that now journalism, for me at least, I felt like it wasn't. I wanted to tell broader stories with my novels as well. And, the thing with the novels is you can really dig into, I don't write issue-based novels as such, but, we all have bring our stuff into it. And I feel like it just gave me a lot more space to explore themes that there was just no space you can't in a 1,000-word article or whatever, or even a 10,000-word article. So it just allowed me to kind of have more of a voice, and I really enjoyed it. The first story was a struggle, but then now I'm on my third now, and I'm really loving it. I'm just really enjoying. I think I'm enjoying storytelling more. It's less now about, when you first start, it's like the novel. I'm writing a novel. It's a big thing, and now I'm just like, I'm writing a story. It's just a story.
So, okay, so there's lots to unpack here. Let's go back. I think for one thing, so it's interesting. We're gonna avoid talking about what's going on, how we think our leaders are insane.
Yeah.
I had, to me, like, the most amazing thing about this time is I've watched people that were divided, like the divides have actually grown. And the only thing, honestly, I don't look at, this is what this time has taught me three very important things about people. One, sometimes I think as the human race, as in general, it's easier to blame each other than it is to actually really look at our problems. Yeah. I learned like especially when the massive, like, I can't. You guys had it interesting over there. We'll just leave it at that. You guys have an interesting scenario over there, but
in the UK or in India?
UK. I'm in Canada, so it's. Okay. I think we're doing better than you, but with all due respect, like, the bar isn't very high on that one. So we'll just not go there. But what I will say is this: even here, watching what's going on, seeing one thing the very first thing I recognized really, really early on is that, generally speaking, the lack of integrity in leadership is honestly pretty much the source of all our problems. Like I honestly believe that, because I look at the divides, and again, it's easier to blow after each other because we feel like it's a level playing field when we're going after each other. And this is something I've realized. It's easier to do that than look at our leaders and go, "You fucked up. You done fucked up. Now you need to actually do something, or let's just replace you." Yeah. We're not ready to do that. I think as civilization, from a civilization point of view, as a culture, we're not ready to do that. It's because that means a full wholesale change. But we're not. There's an order of things right now. It's not a great order of things, but there's an order of things to it. So I think that's something I personally think, number one. Number two, the other thing I've learned is this has shown, I have seen some of the kindest and cruelest things from sometimes the same people, which is actually amazing, yeah. Right? The dichotomy of that is incredible. And three, I've also learned this too, in one very real sense. It just reminds you how fragile life is. Mm. Even before this happened, the dangers we're all scared of were always there. It was never. I mean, you grew up in India. You know this far probably better than most. Like how much disease, poverty, and stuff, yeah, every day puts a lot of people at risk, and just because, yeah, just the environment they're in. And every day that they don't have the luxury of staying home and going on the internet like most of us are doing right now in the rest of the world. They have to live their lives. They have no choice. And that life has always been fragile. And I feel like, if anything, kind of why I've done what I've done is because it's like, well, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Because honestly, I don't know how long I have. And I don't do that as I want to die. I do that as I want to live. I'm no longer interested. I'm probably going to get my ass kicked and suffer greatly in life when it's someone's my turn to go. I'm good with that. Let me get the things I want out of life while I'm here, because there's really, what else can I do when you come right down to it? So those are the three big things I learned in this time, and I've kept those things in mind going forward. So when someone tries to give me a side, yes, I actually look at that. It's like two parents fighting, trying to get their children to pick sides. The best.
You know what it is? We've become very black and white in our thinking, right and wrong, black and white. And I think that's the great thing about fiction, is that it's all shades of gray. Like what you were just saying is, the people who you completely disagree with and feel like they're doing terrible things sometimes do the most amazing, brilliant, kindest things, or vice versa as well. Like the people who you think are really kind might surprise you and do something really shockingly bad or whatever. But the point is, we're not one. We've started seeing people as right or left, or we've started seeing people in very binary ways, and I think that's really problematic. And fiction is so amazing because it shows you, good fiction actually shows you shades of gray, and that's why I read fiction. I mean, that's why I think many of us like to read fiction, because good storytelling is not right or wrong, black and white.
It isn't amazing that it's good fiction writing. So I'm just curious, do you have a genre you're writing in? Because I know you for your freelancing, not so much for your fiction. Is there a genre you like?
I don't know what my genre is actually.
Okay, fair enough. When
you say India, people put you in the literary genre, but I'm not actually a literary writer, so I don't know what genre my books will be.
Okay.
I do know that I really kind of want to experiment with crime fiction. My books are not crime fiction at the moment, but I would really like to at some point.
I think for you, just based on what I've how we talk, you love structure. So crime, science fiction, fantasy would probably appeal to you on some levels.
None of my books follow that. I've got 3 now. The third is a dystopia, so that's the genre, I guess. The first 2, they don't really have mainstream. That's my genre.
Okay, so that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. No, what I was going to say though, the reason I was going to say is like, great fiction, like ultimately, the really, really good fiction, it teaches us empathy, right? Because honestly, like, because something you just point out, no one's one side or the other. I can respect you for who you are as a person and completely disagree with you on, and once upon a time I could still have a beer with you afterwards. Like, you know what, right?
I still try to do that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Because honestly, like, look, first off, the world's bigger than us. Like, honestly, like, the world is bigger. I certainly am not right about everything. I probably made mistakes getting out of bed this morning. I mean, it's just, I mean, that's how it works, right? So I actually love diversity in different opinions, and I mean, as long as it's not like kill this group of people, specific group of people, I'm pretty open to what you're gonna say, simply based on the fact that it's like, right. I mean, I don't want to talk politics, but we can. I mean, right, but it's one of those. I'm not saying us in the interview, but I mean, like, as a gentleman, right? Right. It's one of those things where it's like, I'll talk to you about anything. I'll hear, because that's what we do. We're supposed to communicate and connect, and we've stopped listening. And that's actually, I think that's our problem in a nutshell, is we've stopped.
I do think sometimes it's really hard as well. I mean, to give credit where it's due, it's really hard, because if you're talking to somebody who has a very different point of view, or opposing point of view, and they're very solid in it, and they refuse to kind of have a conversation, and they're just, talking at you, it's very, very difficult. And I find that more and more, I think that's what people, like I was saying earlier, it's just pick a side and then do everything to stick to that side, even when it doesn't make sense, and or not have a conversation about it. And I think that's maybe where I feel like that's where I turn to fiction for, both the reading and the writing. I mean, I wrote this newsletter a couple of months ago where I said I've just stopped arguing about politics on social media, and I went and wrote a novel instead. I used all that kind of, the things that I would have raged about on social media, I put it in my work. And I think that's much more productive and healthy for my own mental health, if anything else, because there are things that are happening that I don't agree with, that are triggering, or that upset me, or that I completely feel but raging at somebody else doesn't change them. Raging on social media doesn't change them. But my work might, somebody might pick up my work, when it eventually it's published, and say, actually, that's a point of view I hadn't thought of, and maybe I can see this from a different perspective, because I am not trying to badger them with it. I am just telling a story. And I feel like if you're going to convince people, that's probably a better way than to try and hammer the point home.
You can't. You can't hammer someone. You have to. I mean, all you can do is tell your story and let people decide for themselves. And honestly, isn't that what we always done? I mean, that's actually the best. Isn't that the best way of doing it anyway? So, But okay, so now let's go from that to the, okay. So you've been doing novels, and you've done 3 of them. So
I'm on my 3rd now.
You're on your 3rd. So your 3rd is dystopia. I'm writing a dystopia right now too, actually. I'm homaging my favorite book of all time is Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. It's the only book that's ever scared me. Right? I read horror. Cool. People being afraid to read and giant screens of television. I actually, to be perfectly honest, I don't own a big screen of television. And I don't think I ever will, because I read that book. Because honestly, I look at that concept and I'm like, this is, so I do like playing video games. I am immature enough to still play them. I don't know if you actually played your son.
I do. I love playing. I mean, we've got an Xbox, and my son and I play all the time.
What do you play? What do you play?
Like Lego games, like those.
Oh yeah, no, the Lego games are.
We just have so much fun.
Yeah, the Lego Star Wars is my favorite of all of the Lego.
All right, we did the Batman one.
Batman's good. No, Batman's really good. Batman's a lot of fun too. I think the cool thing about the Lego games is it's got everything you want. It's got a fun little game with a fun story. It's very, very lighthearted. Even like, no matter how terrifying the Joker.
And it uses, you have to do problem solving, which is really fun. You kind of you really have to figure things out, and it's I find it quite fun.
I'm almost afraid to give you this suggestion, because I get the feeling you're the kind of person that if you go into that rabbit hole, you might never come out. But I'm going to give you this suggestion anyway. There's a game called Minecraft. It's like Lego on right.
I have not touched it. My son's not a fan, so I've been
okay. But I think you in particular, again, just based on I don't know you that well, but because I think
I like the logic and the
Not only do you like the logic, you're very creative, and like Lego's like the coolest toy in the universe. But the thing is, the turn off of buying Lego is it gets everywhere. It's almost like glitter, right? It just literally gets on the floor. Like you're like, how did this get here, right?
I'm sitting in my son's room right now, and there is Lego all over the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Because Lego's awesome. Like Lego's an awesome toy. You can build anything with it.
Yep.
But you know, taking that with you to work and stuff feels a little awkward. But on your phone, you can take Minecraft on your phone, right? So that's the thing about that game, right? So it's like, if I get into this, and I like one of the Twitch streams I watch.
I have a very addictive personality. This is probably not a surprise. But yeah, I have a very addictive personality. So I have to be very careful of which addictions I'm going to allow into my life, because then, you know, I'm gone for a month. Where is she? Minecraft.
That's right. What did she do? She built the coolest tower ever, but I don't know what she's going to do with it, but she's proud of herself. And that's a great thing. But where was I? Oh yeah, over here. Back to the novels, the novel stuff here. So, you're more confident telling the story. So what like, do you have like, do you want to be traditional? Do you want to be independent? Do you want to be crowd? Ladies and gentlemen, I separate crowdfunding from indie publishing.
Yeah.
They're very different niches.
I agree.
They really are. They have different goals. Nothing wrong with any of them. But honestly, there is a huge difference between them. So what like?
I would like so the way I look at it is I look at the individual book and what might be the best way to move forward with that book, rather than, because I'm open to everything. So when I wrote my novels, I actually do feel that there's a bigger market for it than I have access to myself. So and especially, you know, I write about India, and now my second book was fiction, so half of it is set in India, half of it is set in London. So I felt like there would be a bigger market for it than I had at the moment, or I have access to at the moment. I wanted to go the traditional route just to see. If it doesn't work out, I'm totally open to indie. But I wanted to go the traditional route first. And so I sent emails out to agents, and I got quite a few positive responses. And then I signed with my agent, and she loved it. She took the first book out. We didn't get the advance we were looking for, so we're going to go out with the second book, possibly this year, actually. Because last year we just put everything on hold. So thank you. So this year we'll go out, and then we'll see. I mean, I feel like it would sell, because I feel like there's resonance now in the market for the sort of stuff that I'm doing, kind of international. I don't think there was 10 years ago, but I do feel like there is now. And then if it doesn't, I'm totally open to doing indie. I have like 8 indie books out right now. They're nonfiction. They're 4 writers. I've been playing around with them. I haven't done amazingly well with them because I just put them on Amazon, and basically just that was it. That was the extent of my marketing, that I'm going to throw them on Amazon and send an email. I'm going to do better than that this time. So I'm actually relaunching them, and that's going to happen this year as well. So I'm playing around with all of it. I don't feel like we need to be, I'm an indie author,
I actually think from a business standpoint, like, okay, so my goal is this. I'm going indie first for only, but my reason for it is really simple. I feel having a cachet of books behind me also, like, the benefit you have.
You build on that success, don't you? You kind of,
Well, not only that, so this is how I kind of look at traditional publishing today. I think it's a great thing, but I also kind of feel like, unless you are J.K. Rowling, the sales, not necessarily the person, unless you're Stephen King, right?
How do you know you're not Stephen King and J.K. Rowling until you've actually tried?
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. I totally, no. I'm not saying don't try. I'm absolutely saying try. This is how I'm saying this. I assume that when I do get to the traditional stage, and I will get to the traditional stage.
I see.
Right.
Then you have a bunch of stuff to show.
Well, not only do I have a bunch of stuff to show, but I'm also, I see this all like as a platform concept. Traditional publishing is a platform. It's a great platform with great, like, honestly, it could be built in some very neat ways. But chances are, if we're just being like, just this as close to I get as pragmatic about this sort of thing, right? I'm only going to be there for a limited time. That doesn't mean I won't come back at some point, but I feel like there's what they call the new car smell with authors, with that get into traditional publishing, and then when the smell goes away, right? the publisher, and again, just strictly on a business level, right? My sales may only be so high, and I'm not looking at this I'm looking at this pragmatically. Like, while I'm here, I'm going to try to make the biggest splash I can.
I 100% agree, but it's so funny because I actually think the exact same thing, but my mind flipped to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's cool.
I thought my thing was,
yeah,
if I'm only going to have a limited shelf life with traditional publishing, then let them give me a platform, let them make me big, and then I'll use that platform with my indie stuff later. Like, if I have to go indie later, then I've already got a platform.
See, and here's where me and you are kind of looking at this, I think, differently. Like, one thing is, when I did my first 2 books this last year, because I did market them a little bit, my backlist, every time when I published my second book, all my sales, I've done some like small cross traditional publishing as well, all my sales went up when I released the book. So here's my plan. It's like, I have 3 series I want to do for indie. I want to get them going. And when I get them going, I have a book that I want to do traditionally. But here's how I look at it. When I get to the traditional release, I want to find this guy. They go all the way back to everything else I've done.
It's so interesting because we've actually just come at it from we've got the same principle, and then we're just coming at it from different directions.
And I look at it like, ultimately I'm going to end up back here anyway. So I might as well just go through my learning curve now, right? And so I'm going to go through my learning curve. I'm going to find myself an agent because I'm a badass. I'm going to get published because I'm awesome. And then when it's all said and done, it's like, when my time, they might go to me, Josh, we love you, but at this point, we need to move on in a different direction. I'll be like, okay, I'm ready for it.
I'm the same, just coming at it from a completely opposite which is that I'll have that shelf life. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then I've built that audience already, and I can then.
Whereas I'm building my audience at the grassroots level.
I am too. I'm just doing it in a different. I am building my audience as well, like through my nonfiction and through my journalism and all that. But it's just different. It's interesting.
Like it's just. I look at it kind of like, I'm looking at it kind of from the perspective that ultimately I'm going to end up here anyway, so I might as well learn the space right now. I'm going to be doing some crowdfunding experiments this year as well, because I think, again, that's also a different audience. The cool thing about the crowdfunding audience is you don't need a large audience, right? No. That's the good and ultimately the bad with the crowdfunding thing.
Tell me about this. I found that with the crowdfunding, because it's not just, and my own, I suppose, I haven't looked into it that much, but my own feeling about crowdfunding was that it's just like you have to give levels, and then there's, you have the ebook version, and then you have the print version, and then you have levels on top of that. Why wouldn't you just like self-publish it and then let people just buy the book?
Okay, so here are the benefits to it. There are 2 really cool benefits to it. Number one,
the benefits as an author. Like, what's the benefit as a reader?
The benefit as a reader is this interaction we're getting right here. Crowdfunding gives you like the crowdfunding thing. Like, indie is somewhere in the middle between traditional and crowdfunding when it comes to interaction. A lot of indie authors do like what I'm doing. They have a show, they have a newsletter, they're trying to build like. The marketing aspect of it is there, but unlike say what traditional indie does, crowdfunding gives you the option of directly interacting with fans that not only they're cheering you on, rah rah rah, they are literally doing it with their dollars, right? They're literally doing that with their dollars, and as a reader, you get to actually, again, you get an access and interaction that you can't get anywhere else. Comic books in particular have benefited greatly from that avenue, because it also shows too that, one, you can complete a project. It gives you, your boss is kind of your fans, and your fans are like, that's the other thing too. The fans are kind of on some level dictating the success of it, and I think there's an appeal to that interaction. I'm going to you for help as an author, and as a reader, you're kind of like, I'm helping you. That's actually, it's a very different. There's a very different feeling when you do that, right? You're not paying somebody, you're helping them create something amazing. And you can make a living doing that. The problem with it is your audience, now again, don't necessarily need a big audience. And if you're content with a small audience, it's not a bad way to make a living. And also the audience does grow there too. The more successful project you have.
I guess as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the audience does grow there too. There are a lot of pros and there's a lot of pros and cons to it. It's a unique animal in the sense too, because books in particular, I think it's an untapped area still, because there's there is, I think, room for it there. I do think though,
I feel like I have thought about this, and I've thought, I have 8 books in a series for nonfiction, which is a freelance writer's guide series. So basically, it's freelance advice for writers. If I could go back, I probably would experiment with crowdfunding for that series for sure, because it's just like, it's nonfiction that I already have a list of people who are quite interested in it. If I were going to experiment with, there'll be more, but I think looking back, that would have been one to experiment with crowdfunding.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in your particular case, I mean, there's definitely, you'd be a good teacher, and honestly, if that would be, if I were to crowdfund that series,
because then I can do videos and I can do
exactly. You could have people pay for the interaction they get with you, and they would enjoy it, I think. But
video all the time though.
But I mean, you could do something like, you can do something exclusive, right. I mean, there are
like, I have a membership community where I do I do all of this anyway. It's just that mindset.
No. Hey, listen. I mean, you got your own brand, and honestly, that's the important part of the equation, right? Like, you built yourself up, and just like I'm trying to build myself up right now. So
yeah, no, but it's interesting because I feel like there's so much more opportunity now for us to do things in new ways that weren't there before. Before it was like a choice between, you're either going to go with a traditional publisher, or a big one or a small one, or you're going to do the whole self-publishing process yourself. And I'm talking like 20 years ago, before the whole indie movement, and those were the only 2 choices. You're going to like pay for printing, and you're going to try to get them. Now you could do just ebooks, you could do everything, I've had only ebooks out for a long time, and that's been fine, and now I'm ready to get into print, and I can. It's like there's no barrier to entry other than the fact that you just write a good book. People will buy it if you tell them about it.
Write a book, tell people about it, and it's awesome. And let people, and give people the opportunity to try you, and also just keep going. Like, I think where I kind of want to ultimately go with this conversation, because we're talking about being open and vulnerable and admitting the failure. Did you really fail? And I mean, and I ask it this way, and like this: every failure I've ever done, everything that didn't work out the way I ever expected to, has actually ultimately benefited me in the long run, right? So, did you really?
I take away that emotion from the word failure, because I think for a lot of people, the word failure means like it's reflection on you. I have failed. My first novel didn't sell. That's a failure, but it's nothing to, it doesn't reflect on me or what, but also it doesn't mean that it's a constant failure. It means it might sell after, like, that's the plan now, is that first we'll sell the second one, then we'll go back to the first one. It doesn't mean it's a permanent failure. It doesn't mean it's a reflection on me. I take away the emotion from the word failure. I failed in this particular thing, but yes, there were lessons. But also it doesn't mean that it can then not transform into a success. So when I use the word failure, I don't actually mean it to be like a sentence. I mean it to be just like, well, yeah, that thing didn't work out. It didn't work out just sounds more wordy, so I say failure. But it's just like, at that time, that thing didn't work out. And for me, nothing is ever a permanent failure, because I just keep going. If the first book didn't sell, I've written 2 more. I will keep writing more. Like, eventually you're going to give in, and you're going to buy something, because A, I'm going to get better, and B, I'm just going to wear you down, which is basically it's just like, I just keep putting my hand up, me, pick me, and eventually they do. You have to, because you just can't ignore somebody who's constantly jumping up and going, me, my turn.
No, eventually they're like, just tell me what you want.
Shut up. Here you go. Here's an assignment. Go do it. See if that was my freelancing life. I'd just constantly be like, me, and eventually,
it caves.
Yeah, well, either they cave, or I come up with an excellent idea, or somebody's like, wow, she's really eager, let's give her a chance. It's just constantly and not having ego involved. I was never like, oh, how dare you reject me? Have you not seen? I was always and I was young as well. I think it'd be more a challenge now, but I'm doing this with my books as well. Like, okay, you don't like that one, here's another one. Don't like that one, here's another one. Can I send you a proposal? Can I, I'm just always in there going, please pick me, pick me, pick me. And at some point, people see that you're in it for the long run.
And no, eventually people just realize like you're serious. And, I mean, like I am doing what I'm doing now. Like again, first year, I made thousands. Not great, but not terrible either. This year, I'm like, okay, I'm reinventing this myself, but eventually I'm gonna be like this, me, and it's because ultimately speaking, like I look at this is a baseball analogy. Babe Ruth swung at almost every pitch. Yeah, he struck out a lot.
Yeah,
he had a lot of home runs too. I mean, law of averages. The more you do stuff, the more things happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, in my private moments, I do sometimes have like that feeling of, will it ever happen? Or and this was the same for freelancing. It's now the same for books. I've been through this journey before, where you're just like, oh, just nobody gets me, and poor me, and blah blah blah. But actually, what else am I going to do? This is what I want to do with my life. I want to write. I'm just going to keep writing. If I have to go get a job in the meantime or do whatever I need to for money, fine. But in the end, this is what I want to do. And I'm going to keep doing it. Whether anybody else believes in me or not, I am going to keep showing up because I will keep getting better. Also, this is how I want to spend my life. I want to write all day long. Mm-hmm. That's how I want to live my life. And you don't get to decide whether I get to do that or not. I get to decide whether I do that or not. So I'm going to keep doing it anyway. Whether you buy it or not is your choice, but you don't decide whether I get to do what I want to do with my life.
I really like that. That's a heck of a mission statement. I feel like we have an interview here. What do you think?
I need a mic to just.
No, honestly, that was great. I actually like that. I'm glad we did this. I'm really glad we did this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So okay, so what's going on with you right now? Like, what are you working on? Releasing anything? Is anything out that people kind of should be aware of? I mean, this is the wonderful time to plug your stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So I am re-releasing books for writers, for freelance writers. So if you want to be a freelance journalist or writer, I have 7 books out that will teach you how to do it and actually make money with it. So I don't teach writing; I teach the business of writing. So you can find that at theinternationalfreelancer.com. The books are right now just ebooks, but they will be out in print. And I also changed my name last year, so they will be rebranded under my new name, which is Natasha Relph. And yeah, so that's where to find me. And I have a newsletter that I send out daily for writers, and I talk about, like we were saying, the ups, the downs, the successes, the failures, the everything.
Very humanizing newsletter. I mean, it makes it feel like when you do something, it's like, hey, me too. I know exactly what that feels like right now.
Yeah, because I don't try to pretend to be more successful than I am, or like every day is a great day at work. It isn't. So I try to keep it real because I think people need that. I need that. I mean,
if you're not authentic, you're not. I mean, why are you doing this? Again, like even the most, like I mentioned professional wrestling. I've said this on another podcast. My favorite wrestler is Macho Man Randy Savage. As crazy as that guy was, he believed it, and you could tell he believed in what he was doing. Yeah. And when people can tell when you believe it. If they didn't believe it, they don't think you believe it, they wouldn't be paying attention at all, right? And that's true. Like people. That compassion, that authenticity is contagious, and that self-belief ultimately is contagious. So.
Yeah, well, I want people to look at, a lot of people want to be seen as successes. I want people to look at my work and say, oh, if she could do it, I can do it. Because really, I grew up in India at 19 years old. I was a failed college student. I failed my first year in college. That's how I became I always knew I wanted to write, but that gave me the reason to start writing. And so if I could do it from all the way in India, I want people to look at me and say, oh, if she could do it, then surely it's not that hard.
Yeah. There's a one of my favorite quotes: "Success checker. I'd rather have success checkered in failure than the great twilight in between." I feel that probably sums you up very well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So beyond that, where can people find you? If you want to subscribe to the newsletter, where can people subscribe to it?
You can subscribe at theinternationalfreelancer.com. So it's theinternationalfreelancer.com. I also have a personal website, NastashaRelph.com, but both of them lead to the same newsletter, so you can go either way.
All right. And any social media you want to?
I pulled back from social media, so you'll find NastashaRelph on all the social medias, but I am actually not quite active on there. So if you want to hear from me, so email newsletter is the best.
All right. All right. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching and listening to this podcast. I want to thank Natasha for doing this. She was incredibly sweet to do this. If you guys want to support it, there's my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/JustJoshingPodcast. Click the follow. My YouTube channel is Joshua from Delarosco. You can click it there. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.